Okay, everybody, welcome to the Rett U Smartbox web chat. We are here. I'm Courtney Barnum. I am a Rett U consultant, and we have Miss Susan, who is our co-founder and also consultant for Rett U. And then we have our wonderful people from Smartbox, who I'm going to let you introduce yourselves.
There you go.
Yeah. My name is Alicia Elverson. I am a speech therapist and a clinical education specialist at Smartbox. My background largely comes from working with children using AAC who require some sort of alternative access. And Melanie or Michelle, I'll let you introduce yourselves.
Sure. My name is Melanie Gilling. I am a speech language pathologist and director of clinical education at Smartbox. And I also worked outpatient pediatrics for about 9 or 10 years before coming to Smartbox. And yeah, turn over to you, Michelle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Racconi. I am by trade a speech language pathologist. I joined the Talk to Me Technologies team in September 2024. Talk to Me Technologies is the largest sales arm of Smartbox. So from a branding perspective, we are the Smartbox family. So yeah, it's nice to be here and yeah, share some information with you all.
Some quick housekeeping. We're going to have everybody keep their cameras off and their mics muted until the end. If you have any questions, you can throw them in the chat, or we'll have some time at the end for you guys to ask questions. All right, well, let's go, ladies.
Oh, and this is a 3-parter, right?
Yes, this is a 3-parter. We have 3 sessions, once in February, once we're in January, February, and March, and the dates are on our social media. And there will be registration before each one.
Perfect. All right, so today, I'm going to get my screen shared. There we go. We are going to talk about grid today and then explore one vocabulary set that exists inside of grid called supercore. So we're going to have a bit of a whirlwind tour. I'm going to try to hit on kind of the highlights and the hot spots and the things that hopefully you'll find most helpful for working with children with Rett syndrome. So to give a little bit of a I don't know, grounding is the only word that's coming to mind right now, but it's really not the word that I want. But to kind of get you started orientated, to give you a little bit of an orientation, this screen that I have pulled up is essentially grid. We call this blue screen Grid Explorer, and this is what houses any of the content you're going to use. So you're going to see that I have lots of different little tiles on here, and these are just different pieces of content. So grid is an AAC software. We create both content for symbol communication, for text communication, but then we create a lot of other supports inside of it too, to really kind of support that entire assistive technology need, to support learning needs, literacy needs, language needs, kind of all in one solution as much as we can. So you're going to hear a lot about communication development today. I'm going to sprinkle in some literacy, language, school age learning needs as well. And then you'll hear some more about other supports that we offer in grid in the next session when we talk about mental health and emotional regulation supports. So just know as you're looking around here, if you're going to see a lot of things we're not going to look at today. But one thing that is really nice about grid is all the things that we look at throughout these 3-part series. They all come with grid. You don't have to kind of choose which pieces you want. If you decide to use grid, you get all of it. You can add things, you can delete things at any time. And so to kind of give you a little bit more of a picture of what all exists, if we go in and look at how to add a grid set, you'll see these different buckets that I was talking about. So you'll see your communication solutions. You'll see some, we call them interactive learning solutions. These are really more kind of activity-based games, if you will, to help work on access methods, to just kind of get outside of that, what can be really stressful sometimes, large communication grid set, to just get in and start interacting with it, doing something that might be fun, might be meaningful for the person you're working with. We have things like accessible apps. These are going to be things like Disney Plus, YouTube Kids, email, texting, Netflix, kind of, you name it, but you kind of get the gist along that line. And they're going to be modified in a simplified platform to help people who are using things like switches and eye gaze be able to access those platforms outside of a web browser with bigger buttons in ways that are more easily accessible. You'll see computer control. That's going to be when somebody's ready to kind of get outside of grid, use their device as a computer, and access everything else they can do on their device. Environmental controls to control things like TVs, lights, blinds, fans, all of those things in our environment, including talking to our smart home devices. We now have some printable options, so if somebody wants to print some of the books from some of the communication that we look at today, those exist. And then we have some options to help with education. So these are academic-based supports. There are going to be some literacy supports, some math supports. You'll see things that teachers can use in classrooms, kind of a whole range of things. That is a session in and of itself, but just something I want to highlight so you know it exists. And then the last thing on the screen is online grids. So we also have an online community where people can essentially share the grid sets that they've modified, they've authored, they've created to an online community, so you can download them and use them on your own. So for example, there's a very modified YouTube grid set that exists that just automatically opens up a YouTube video that you specify in a field of 4, something really simple to interact with and kind of get started as somebody might be learning their access method. So lots of different things that exist in there. All right. And then I am going to jump into SuperCore, which is our flagship core vocabulary system. I want to start in SuperCore 50 because that's the largest grid size that we offer in SuperCore right now. But we will briefly look at SuperCore 30 and SuperCore Learning just to see what some larger buttons can look like in this. But SuperCore 50 is really going to walk us through everything that we need to kind of see in SuperCore tonight. So when you first open up SuperCore, you get an option to choose your vocabulary, a child version or a teen and adult version. Now, this is a tricky question sometimes because overnight you don't turn into a teenager. It's a process that happens over several years. So knowing that this isn't meant to say we're thinking this is a binary option, either you're a child or a teen and adult, but what we wanted to do was offer a different set of vocabulary, mostly fringe vocabulary, which are those more specific vocabulary words that we use, that gets at the growing needs of development as children become teens and adults, or for somebody who starts their AAC journey as a teen or an adult to have options for gaming and hanging out with friends and doing more leisure type activities instead of bubbles and ball and dolls that might be geared for a younger child. Now, not to say that somebody's not going to still utilize and enjoy those activities as they grow into teen and adulthood, but just kind of giving more of those options. And then you can bring vocabulary over if you do transition into one or the other vocabularies. So we'll start in the child version. And as you progress through, you can kind of see, okay, what does it mean that I'm choosing this children's vocabulary? Okay, it has a focus on fun and familiar play activities, language for daily routines, child-friendly vocabulary for a range of topics. So you can kind of see those things as you walk through. And here we are now on the main screen. So this is your home page of SuperCore. One of the biggest things we wanted to do when developing SuperCore was easy access to the words children are using every day, but also the vocabulary that they were going to need in the activities that they're doing. We love core vocabulary, which are all of these words over on the left side of the screen here. These are things like your action words, your describing words, your people words, those words that aren't necessarily context specific, but do require some context to provide robust meaning to them. So a word like go, I can use that in so many different ways. So that's your core word, right? And we wanted to provide quick access to those, but we wanted to also give access to all of these other things over on the right side of the screen without having to lose access to these core vocabularies to flip to those activities. So, for example, if we hit play, and we are going to talk about Play-Doh because that's what we're doing today, or that's our favorite activity. You can see the Play-Doh words over here. Again, it's a variety of words, objects, nouns, describing words. Some of them are core vocabulary, some of them are fringe vocabulary, but they all have to do with playing Play-Doh. And you'll notice this part of the screen looks like it hasn't really changed. You still have access to all of that same vocabulary. So I can say things like, I want the big rolling pin. Rolling pin. Okay, I can put those 4 words together really quite easily, all on the same page. I can clear it out if I want to, and I can say help. Help. Open. Help open. To help open the Play-Doh, for example. Okay, and you're seeing that it's writing up into the message display at the top. It's using symbols. I can turn that off if I want to and not have symbolated text. So that's an option that you have. And then if I wanted to get into some phrases, I can hit my phrase button. And now I have some really generic play phrases, and these will be the same no matter if I'm in Play-Doh, bubbles, music, imaginative play. I'll get these kind of phrases to help keep my communication efficient, to help bridge that gap, to keep me connected in my conversations and in my social interactions. So I've got some phrases here. And again, you could customize these too. If some of these phrases aren't quite how you would say it or quite how your child would say it, we could customize those to make them what we want. So for example, I'm just going to open up editing really quick just to show you how you can edit it on the fly. And if you want to change something, I don't know why I'm going for that's mine, but I'm going to go for that's mine. That's mine. I want it. Maybe I want to add some words to it. I can just type that in there and I can hit finish editing. And now I've got my new phrase very quickly. I can change the label so it's not so wordy too if I wanted to. So there's kind of the idea of that activity vocabulary next to that core vocabulary. Something I haven't shown is what changes on this home screen as I'm communicating. So if I jump back for a minute and I say that I want to go somewhere. I'm in my Play-Doh page, but maybe I'm done with Play-Doh and I want to go outside. I can still say that without having to change the page. And what happened here was these purple words up at the top changed. We call these useful next words. It looks very similar to word prediction, but it's not word prediction because they will very predictably change and they will always change in the same way to the same words. So they start as question words because they don't know if you're starting a statement or a question, and then it's going to narrow down and focus as you select a word. So when I hit go, it popped up some words I might say or use after the word go. And it will always be those words, always in that order after go. Stop has its own set of words that will go alongside of it. And then you see too that some of the grammar is changing. We call that smart grammar. So that's going to change as somebody goes along and uses SuperCore just to help, again, with that efficiency in communicating. So maybe I want to say something like opening. Stop, open it. Okay. And I'm going to just delete it, for example. Maybe opening, isn't the word ending I wanted, I can always change that too. So if I jump home and I go into my magic wand, I now have my other word ending options too. So
Open.
I can change it to something else as well. So those are a few features on that main page. Over on the right side, again, we were in play, doing Play-Doh. You've got a lot of other activities here. You can open up a page of more activities as well. And then some blank templates to add in your own activities too. Okay, and then the other one that we have is daily activities. So this is a place I often start families in because these are things we're doing every day. So instead of trying to say, okay, here we go, we're going to introduce AAC and now this is another thing you have to do, I want to say, no. You're already doing all of these things. We are just incorporating a communication method to allow for more communication during those activities. So what's something that goes really well? Maybe, snack time after school. So maybe that's when we're going to pull the device out. Every day we're just going to make sure, for sure, we have it out during snack time. And we're going to talk about our snack. We're going to comment on our snack. We're going to tell what we want, things like that. So just a nice way to incorporate a device into something that you're already doing without having to think of new activities to introduce words in an AAC device. Okay. Then, as we go down, you have things like chat words. Those are going to give you your social type words. Same format again, where they're going to show up right alongside that core vocabulary. You're going to go into some concept type words, position, places, time, and feelings. Those are going to get you exactly what you think. One thing I'm going to highlight here in time that I really enjoy is if we expand it out. So now we're going to move away from our core vocabulary. We have a place where we can keep our own calendar. Sometimes that can be really helpful for kids to know what's going on throughout their week. So in their calendar, they can go in and you can program what they're doing on the different days of the week. So that they've kind of got that idea and they've got it stored right in their communication system. And then as we go down, we have topics. This is where you're going to get all of those nouns, all of those really specific words organized by topic. So as we go into here, we're now moving away from that core vocabulary page into very specific words, organized by words that are similar to each other. So, for example, vacation. If I open up vacation, I have a bunch of vocabulary I might use to talk about going on vacation. I might use to talk about the things that I need or am doing on vacation. They're all nouns, and don't fret because we did move away from our core vocabulary, but we can still really quickly get back there by jumping home and saying something like, I want, go, and then jump back. And now I'm right back to my vacation vocabulary. I want to go to the beach on my next vacation. So you can see how I can mix and match these different pages, combine some vocabularies quite quickly by using some navigation features. So, and sometimes that takes a little bit of teaching to start teaching those navigational commands, but it's really important things to learn for that operational piece of using AAC. And then if I go back home, I'm just going to clear out my display, jump back into topics again, just to give you a moment to kind of look at that page, grasp what's on it. But again, some pretty basic topics. They'll be very similar. If you've seen other AAC programs, these are very similarly organized topics. And then we'll jump back and you can see two blank spaces to put in your own vocabulary or make your own topics as well. The next one we're going to look at is school-based vocabulary. So this is one that was really important to us too, is that we know school is such a large part of children's lives. They spend a lot of time in school. They need the vocabulary to support them in their classrooms. So again, we wanted to give that vocabulary easy access. So if you jump into school, you have subtopics organized by subject. So during Science, I could open up my science words, and I have some very generic science words. Not all that like scientific of science words, but words I may use when I'm talking about science or doing science. I can hit my more button, and then I will get more of those specific science type words. To give another example, we have stories. This is where some of the literacy sprinkles are going to come in now. So we wanted to build in some literacy supports, but because we know that learning language supports literacy development, and literacy development supports learning language. So those are things we want to keep very closely intertwined as we're teaching AAC, and we wanted to ensure that SuperCore had access to both of these things. So here you have some words you might use when you're sharing a story, reading a story, listening to a story. If you go into more, you've got those story words still, but then you have some book templates that you can use, some blank templates where you can build your own books. And so what this looks like is, if we're reading Very Hungry Caterpillar, we have a page built out with all of, or maybe not every single word, but most of the words in the Very Hungry Caterpillar. So now I can read along in the story, I can participate in the story, no matter what my level of device knowledge is. So this gives me a way that I can access a lot of that very specific vocabulary for a very specific activity quite quickly, quite easily, without having to know that, yes, I can find strawberries in my food page. That does exist. Oranges exist in my food page. But my priority right now is that engagement and that social interaction with the story. I'm trying to get that literacy piece out of it. And so I want to decrease my language and my navigation demands a little bit so I can get that enrichment with that literacy activity. So we've built in storybook pages like this. You can take this idea and run with it, create ones for other books that maybe a child reads often as well. So again, that was in school, and that was in stories. Okay, and you can see here we've got other school topics that exist here as well. We're going to jump back and look at these bottom two now, kind of rounding out our very quick tour of SuperCore. Messages is the next one we're going to look at. This I'm going to open up. It's going to go away from the core vocabulary. It's a page of pre-stored or pre-built phrases, organized by kind of topic or why you're looking for the phrase. So I need some help. I'm going to find some things I might say when I need some help. If I hit any one of these buttons, it expands into a page of additional phrases with also a lot of blank space to create your own phrases too. Again, you can customize these phrases to be the things that you need them to be too. So if they're not quite phrased or worded the way that you might say something, then we can go ahead and change that. No problem. They don't have to be the things that we put on there, but we just wanted to provide a page that gave a lot of robust phrases, again, to help with that social interaction piece, the engagement piece, to give some of those things that I might be saying many times a day, kind of quick access. So if I want to say I want to go, even though I can really quickly create that on my main page, I can also just pop in and hit that button too. So I don't have to spend the extra time saying something with 4 words that I could say with 2 hits instead. So that's the idea there. And then lastly, and certainly not least, is spelling. This is where your keyboard's going to be. We start out on an alphabetical keyboard that is saying the letter sound. So if I hit B, we'll hear B instead of B. D. Okay, so you're going to hear the sound of the letter. It's an alphabetically organized keyboard. It doesn't have to be though. If somebody already has access to a QWERTY keyboard and experience with it, we can change it to a QWERTY keyboard. We can change the sound output as well, all over here in the change keyboard button. So you can see there's 3 different layouts that we offer: the alphabetical, a QWERTY, or a switch frequency keyboard for somebody who's using scanning or switches. So I could change that to QWERTY. And maybe I really am working on my literacy skills. I really am working on using both my symbol communication, but supplementing that with text communication for the words that maybe aren't in my device. I could add in word predictions, so I have that available as well on my keyboard, and then I can choose my output. I can keep the letter sounds if I like that. I can move on to letter names when I'm ready for that, or I can not do any sound at all, and it'll just speak once you've put a space after a word or told the device to speak. So different options here. So I can change it to letter names, and now
Bad.
if I do bad again,
B.
B,
A.
A.
D.
Okay. And then from here, I can also find a word. So if I'm like, all right, that's great, we can spell that word. That word does also exist in your device. Let's see if we can figure out where that is. I can go over to find word. I can hit that, and it's automatically going to put me into a guided pathway to open up to
Bad.
the word that I had spelled. All right. So I'm going to pause there for a second and I am going to jump into the chat to see if there are any questions. If I can find my buttons here. Okay, awesome, there's not. Because I just wanted to make sure that we get those questions answered as we go along. So you've got that spelling page on there. You can change it, but that is such a huge component of our literacy and our language development. So we wanted to make sure that you had access to both of those things really easily and to choose the option that works for you. Some other bits and pieces in SuperCore that we haven't covered, I'm just going to show you down at the bottom here. These plus buttons are expanded buttons. We've played around with more options a little bit, but these will bring you into, if you want more action words, this will bring you into a whole page of action words. So if you're wondering what those buttons are at the bottom, that's what they are. We chose to organize a lot of our vocabulary in SuperCore by related words and frequency of use versus doing an alphabetical organization, just because for a child who potentially doesn't have any literacy skills yet, that's going to make just as much sense as organize something alphabetically. Alphabetically makes a lot of sense for those of us who have literacy skills. So we organize by topic, but we do give you the option to flip it into an alphabetical organization if you'd like. So you can kind of see down here at the bottom, these are our little subtopics of action words that we've kind of categorized our verbs into. And then if we go back, we're going to go look at the magic wand. Earlier, we saw that there were some alternate word endings here. You have additional word endings in your magic wand page. Very cutely, we have these emojis that are great for kind of that social connection, great for communicating without using words, which is something that all of us, I think, are doing probably multiple times a day at this point. And these are really fun because they animate both visually and auditorily. So if it's close to dinner time for some of you, you might be feeling this guy, a little hungry. So just kind of a fun way to play around with expression. You know, I had an idea today. It was a good one. And we've organized these kind of by things that might be more positive, things that might be more negative, things that are kind of jokey. Again, none of these meant to have a judgment associated with them, just a way to kind of organize like concepts. So if we go into our jokey ones, I think probably unanimously everybody will say that children love this one and this one are just, they just don't lose their luster for whatever reason. So anyway, lots of fun ways to just kind of play around, start to see somebody's personality shine through on the things that they really gravitate towards. And give another way to communicate that's not words, because the reality is communication is more than just words. It's the things we do with our bodies. It's the ways that we put expression on our face. It's little pictures and emojis and all of these other ways that we're supplementing our communication. It's our hand gestures, our body language, all of that. So we wanted to kind of build in some robustness in that communication as well. There's an option to turn the sound off on these too. So sometimes the reality is we're in environments where it's like, okay, I don't want to limit your expression, but like, I'm going to use the library example. I don't feel like you have to be that quiet in libraries anymore, so it's maybe a dated example, but it's like, okay, yeah, we're in the library, like, play around with your emojis, but like, let's learn how you can turn the sound off. Or maybe you've got a teacher that's just like, these need to go away because they're disrupting my classroom. Be like, here's the deal. This is what your teacher's saying. Let's learn how to turn the sound off so you don't have to lose your emojis in the classroom, and kind of teach some of those real world consequences of just kind of what different people's tolerances are towards different things. Again, not saying to cater towards everybody's tolerances or distolerances, but just kind of those different ways that you can manage settings on certain things to make it work flexibly for any environment that you're in. So I'm going to actually jump home and go back into the magic wand to show some of the other things that you can do in SuperCore in the last few minutes here. So one thing that's really important is sharing our work. So if we've gone and we've written something, maybe we've listened to a story and we've wrote an opinion about it. It was bad, didn't like it. The story was bad things happened in it, whatever. I want to share that. I could send it as an email home to maybe mom and dad, or to grandma and grandpa, or to a friend, or to my teacher. I could send it as a text message if I have a phone connected to my device. I could also just save it as a note in my device too. So different ways that you can share your writing area. Different apps. I talked about accessible apps earlier. Different ways you can integrate some of those apps right into SuperCore. Okay, I'm not going to go into those in detail. I just want you to know that they're there. Alexa is quite a popular one. And then other ways that you can kind of see all your writing, expand that, and ways that you can control your settings too. So I don't have eye gaze connected right now, but if I did, my eye gaze settings would show up over here. I could speed up or slow down my dwell time if I needed. This is also where I can change into my teen and adult vocabulary, which is where I'm going to end in the last minute here, just to show you really quickly some differences. So if you're over there wondering, like, okay, what's the difference? What does it look like? Here we go. We're going to go look at it. And you're going to see finish editing. And open up teen and adult. So what has changed? Not really much on this homepage other than daily life and leisure are now differently labeled. We have additional topics. So this column over here is additional to the teen and adult version, and the topics down at the bottom, we've added swearing and slang. There is, I didn't show them, but in the child version, there is also a silly words page that kind of gets into that bathroom talk that a lot of kids do, where you've got fun with butt and poop and pee and all of the potty words that is kind of one of those first developmental steps in swearing and slang language development. Where to talk about relationships, all of that, and then you can see your activities over here just kind of changed, but you haven't lost any of your customization, so you can pull in the pages that you were using in your child vocabulary if you were still using those. And my last and most favorite thing is this conversation page. You have a whole conversation page kind of laid out, which is a really nice scaffold for teaching conversational skills. So I'm going to end there. And I did see something pop up in the chat. I can find it again. Well, perfect. I read whoever's mine wanted to see the teen and adult version. So there you go. There's your brief tour of it. Something I will offer, and then I don't know, Courtney and Susan, if you have a place that you would house this on the website or if we want to share it, but I do have a list of some links too. So for anybody that wants to try out Grid, kind of where and how you would do that, some additional information on SuperCore, just some of our links on our website that will supplement kind of what I ran through today. I've got a list.
Alicia, if you'll send it to me via email, and when we put up our recording of because we are, of course, we're recording this web chat. When we put the recording up, we'll put the links with it so that they can easily get to those areas.
Fantastic.
I think the other thing to mention too, I don't know how many of you are speech therapists that are here or parent versus parents, but your conjugation is probably the best that's out there in terms of foreign languages.
Agreed.
So when you look at, I just was off with a family from Norway. I see somebody in Switzerland who speaks French on a monthly basis. And just being able to conjugate in a way that really makes sense. And, a lot of those languages have the boy girl as the, like a table is a girl. So right? But it's got all of that built into it, which kids in the beginning don't need to necessarily use, but it's all built in so that really they can be grammatically correct when they're ready to. But the conjugation is just way smoother, I think.
Yeah.
And even the verb conjugation, like even when you're looking at a verb, just in terms of the language system in English, the conjugation is so much better.
Yeah. And there, as Susan alluded, there are several languages that we do support in grade 2, I think around 30, between 25 and 30. So if you are not in an English-speaking country or you are and you speak another language,
it's pretty easy to link them together too, so you can go back and forth between the two.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One additional thing, Courtney, would it be helpful to share contact information for folks? Maybe, I know there's a Grid license, but if anybody wanted to move forward or start a trial, could I share TTMT contact information at this point?
Yes, that would be great.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you spending your evening with us, and we'll see you hopefully in February. And in March for the next 2 parts. February will be kind of mental health and self-regulation supports will be kind of the guiding topics there. And then in March, we will dive into devices with Michelle, looking a lot at eye gaze. I think we're going to try to specifically focus on that, and then bring in just other device-related pieces as well.
And then if anybody wants to do the trial and wants to have some pages that we've designed from Rett, like we do a darker background so that they're not so washed out there in terms of how they appear, and just some things that we've added in. I think that really help our families. We have a toolbar across the top that stays the same no matter what, just so that it makes the navigation and the expectation of what's up there more consistent. But we're happy to share those pages also if anybody wants to, if they're doing the trial. Because you're generous. You give a 60-day trial.
We do. We give a 60-day trial for the Windows version, a 30-day if you're using the iPad version.
And this will be, like I said, it is recorded. It will be up on our website underneath our web chats. What's the word I'm looking for? Topic. There's the word I'm looking for. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me, Courtney@gp2c.org. Like I said, the registration for our next web chat with SmartBox will be probably coming up here in about 2 weeks. The next web chat is on February 17th. So you look up, I would say probably at least a week ahead of time for that, for the registration to register for the next one. And like I said, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us.
Or if you have any ideas of things you want to hear about, let us know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys. And we hope everybody has a great evening.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.